Hello, people of the interwebs. Want to learn how to make your own manga but don't really want to buy all those pen, ink, and paper? Then, well, allow me to talk to you into getting started. Because first off, I know probably like 5% of you who's watching this tutorial right now is actually thinking of making your own manga. And okay, I get it. When we think about drawing manga, we think of publishing firms, editors, sitting hours upon hours at a desk drawing your life away. And you are definitely not alone if those prospects terrify or repel you. But what if I tell you, you don't need to go through those vigorous things I just described, or learn Japanese, or move to a different country? Because the truth is, in this new technological age, everything is beginning to turn digital, whether you like it or not. And the possibilities nowadays are endless, and one of them is self-publishing webcomic sites. So don't give up that dream of making a manga or anime of your own, my fellow weebs. I am going to teach you all how to make that idea in your mind become a reality. But first, you need to get started yourself, and here are 6 tips to get you motivated and start planning. There will definitely be a part 2 and 3 to this that will be more technical stuff that comes later. So make sure you click that subscribe button now to be notified for when those come out. But anyways, let's get started. There are 2 main self-publishing websites right now for webcomics, Tapastic and Smackjuice. Both I will link in the description below. And I know what you're thinking right now. For the longest time when I thought about webcomics, I thought about cute cartoons or those scrolling weird vertical ones. But after browsing the sites for a bit, you will very quickly realize that it does not have to be constricted to those things. You can be just as successful publishing a traditional style manga on these webcomic sites as well. This here is my own web manga called When the Stars Misalign. For those of you who didn't know I had one already, I will link it below, but as you can see, only having this up for a little bit over a year, I've managed to gather quite a bit of views and followers. So yeah, just proving a point that the digital medium is for manga as well. Now, I can already hear some of you guys commenting below going like, oh, but my art isn't good enough yet. And you know what? Same, man. Same. Because for the longest time, I kept ideas in my head for another day because I thought my art had to be like freaking fairy tale or Black Butler level, or else it won't be good enough. But for When the Stars Misalign, I said, screw it. What could I lose? I'll give it a try. And honestly, if you pay attention to my art in the pages, you can tell that it is nowhere close to the quality of art in my CGs. And that's because it doesn't have to be. You do not need perfect art to make a good story. And that is my first tip. And to emphasize it, go scroll through Tapastic and Smackjuice, and you'll notice very quickly that not all of the top comics have amazing art or fancy colors. Heck, I'm pretty sure most of you guys know the anime series One Punch Man by now, and how it came out with some crappy scribbles of a kid who goes by the name One, I think. But because it had an amazing plot and it was hilarious, it became the sensation it is now. So I'm not saying that all of us can be the next One Punch Man, but my point is that if One never picked up a pencil because he thought his art wasn't good enough yet to draw his story, One Punch Man never would have been a thing. Alright, so moving on, my second tip for you is to start planning. Doodle out your characters, write a rough draft and point form of what you want to happen. Whatever you do, just start planning. Now, I'm going to admit a little secret of mine, and that is the time it took for me from making up the idea to finalizing the plans for the first chapter of When the Stars Misalign was 1 month. Now, I acknowledge that I'm a very spontaneous person to begin with, and that probably played a huge factor, but you know what? For small artists like us, we need to be spontaneous, because the most important thing is to start planning, to start drawing out ideas and burn on that first bit of inspiration and let it carry you as far as it can, because the longer you let your ideas sit, the less inspired you'll be by it, and the longer you think about it, the more unnecessarily complicated the story will become. I know a lot of you probably already have a story in mind, unlike me who kind of just came up with the story on the spot, and I know at this point some of you have already made up worlds and dozens of characters, so my tip number 3 to you would be to only plan out your first chapter and simplify as much as you can, because right now what's stopping most of you is probably the overwhelming complexity of your worlds and thinking about how much work it is to draw it out. My manga, for example, is shoujo, or romance for those of you who aren't weeb enough for this. I only have 6 actual characters who are important, and maybe like 4 major arcs in total before I call it a day. Spoiler alert. And even then, I was extremely overwhelmed thinking about the amount of work I have to do when I first got started. So for me, it helped when I was able to shut out all the excess noise and just focus on planning and getting the first chapter done, and how I was going to introduce all my babies to everyone out there. Okay, so tip number 4 is to bring a friend in. It helps a lot if you have a friend who you can tell your plans to and story to. And for me, one of my best friends, Jennifer, who y'all see me do artist alleys with all the time, helped me a lot with the initial idea. And it's extremely helpful to have an outsider who can help you bridge plot holes or resolutions and tell you which part are unnecessary. And it also makes the planning process a whole hell of a lot funner. Also, when you start telling people your plans, it makes it just a tiny bit harder for you to back out. But anyways, tip number 5, start storyboarding. And by that, I mean a really terrible and ugly storyboard. And I'm saying that because, okay, here, let me show you the basic storyboard for the first few pages of my manga. So, as disgusting as these looks, it still tells me, the author, enough information to make a better sketch of it later. And also, these are surprisingly hard to make, because even though they're only like pencil scratches, each planning section took me around 30 minutes. So yeah, but these are still extremely important because through these I was able to plan out the panels, figure out what's happening in each page, as well as the dialogue. So let me show you some of the end product of these pages. So as you can see here, the quality of the art is vastly different, but the overall layout is still the same. There's no perspective put into these scenes, and the characters only have faces if there are specific emotions I want them to have. And if you look at the storyboard of the next page, literally has a child's scribble of a house right there, and this guy is literally a stick figure. But anyways, you get the point. The point is to just get your ideas on paper and see some sort of visual representation of what you've been thinking all this time. Now, lastly, tip number 6, and it's probably the most important one. Do not get discouraged. Set your standards low and make sure you're just doing this for shits and giggles. Because for me, When the Stars Misalign cost me an incredible amount of stress when I first began publishing it, and this is a note for all of you as well. Do not underestimate the amount of work. I wish I can tell you it's no big deal as like a way of motivating you, but I can't. At first, I figured that I could do like a single page in 2 hours and update a chapter every week like the rest of the webcomic authors, and let me tell you, do not put that kind of pressure on yourself, because a lot of those people sometimes do this full time, and some webcomics are even made by publishing companies in like Korea or something, and you, my friend, are a one-man team. Because what I quickly learned is that, oh no, it does not take 2 hours, it takes 6 hours per page that takes you guys 3 seconds to read through. So looking back on it now, it was really silly because like, what was I thinking? But my point is, I was getting too cocky and I overestimated myself. I set their standards way too high, and at one point my manga even caused me to break down. But after that, I was able to orientate myself again and set my priorities straight. I decided that I don't need to finish the story, and I'm just gonna do this to challenge myself and see how far I can get. And somehow to this day, I'm still updating When the Stars Misalign, which is now on like the closing part of chapter 4 or something like that. Another quick note is that do not be discouraged if you don't get a following right away. These things do take some time, and the only reason why I personally was able to rack up some fans was because I went ham and did the whole first chapter and published it in one go, which is most definitely more of an eye catcher because then people know exactly what they're looking at. Also, I did have quite a few followers back on DeviantArt by the time, so after aggressively pushing it, that gave me a few extra ones to get started as well. But I would imagine that for most startup comics, it does take quite some time to build up a following, so do be patient if that's something you care about. But anyways, once you make an account, from page 1, tell your fans how often you will be updating, whether it is once a month, once a week, or whatever fits your schedule. Do not push yourself too hard or be discouraged if you see that your original plan isn't working out. Just know that people are reasonable and they really don't care if you change your publishing schedule. I did 2 pages per week at first, and then 2 pages bi-weekly, and now I'm doing 1 page per week. So yeah, honestly, it's your work, so do whatever you want with it. For me, I suggest 1 page per week, and that's also the one I'm sticking to because honestly, it's so easy. Just sit down every weekend for 2 to 6 hours, draw something, and upload it. I bet you can waste that much time away by watching a TV show or something. And the other thing is that the more you do it, the faster you become. Like I said, the first chapter of my manga took me 6 to 8 hours per page. But now, after doing this for over a year, I can do it in 2 to 5 hours. So if you think about it, 2 to 5 hours out of the 52 hours you have per week is honestly nothing. As much as everyone thinks making a manga is hard or time consuming, it really isn't, because at the end of the day, it's really about you. Because let me tell you, being able to draw out a scene that I had in my mind and make it become animated and real is pretty amazing and very euphoric, and hearing people say that they love your story is even better. So thank you guys once again for watching this video. I applaud you if you sat through all of that. Part 2 and 3, which will be more technical, will be coming up soon. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so now. I will be walking you through my process and how to exactly draw a manga. If you are already part of the fam though, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. If you're interested in reading my webcomic, When the Stars Misalign, it is linked in the description below. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and yeah, I'll see you lovelies around until next time.